Hi everybody, this is Laura
and Arnie
with Crazy Cool Cakes. Today we're going to be teaching you how to easily make this beautiful Minnie Mouse hat cake topper.
Let's go and get started.
First thing we're going to do is roll out some black gum paste for the bottom of our hat. Then place it on some parchment paper. I'm using a 4" half styrofoam ball for the inside of my hat. Cover the bottom with a thin layer of shortening and then place it on top of your black gum paste. Give it a good press down. Then use your straight blade to cut off all of the excess. Be sure your blade when you get near the end is flush up against the styrofoam. Go over the gum paste at the bottom to make sure it's completely stuck to the bottom of your ball. Now we're going to roll out some black gum paste to cover the top of the ball. We're going to cover the entire styrofoam with a thin layer of shortening. You want to make sure to go all the way up to the edge, but be very careful that you don't touch the black gum paste underneath. Then add a tiny amount of edible glue to the entire edge of the black gum paste. Cover the styrofoam ball with your black gum paste and begin to cover like you would a round cake. Be sure to spread out the gum paste at the bottom so it doesn't wrinkle on you, and gently begin to press it up against the ball. Use your smoother to help you press the gum paste up against the ball. You can go ahead and start getting rid of any gum paste that you know you're not going to need. Use your palms and your fingers to nudge the gum paste all the way to the edge. Trim off as much excess as you can. Use your smoother to further define the bottom edge. Then, when you're close to done, go ahead and trim off all of the excess. Make sure your blade is nice and flush up against the styrofoam. Smooth the edge a couple of times and then turn your ball over to make sure that both pieces of gum paste are nice and sealed. So far, so good. Next, I'm going to make Minnie's ears, and for this, I'm going to roll out some black gum paste, and I'm going to roll this out pretty thick. I want each ear to be 1/2 inch thick. To cut out the ears, I'm using a 2 3/4 inch circle cutter. I'm going to insert a skewer in each ear a little more than halfway, so you see me making a little mark. That way when I'm inserting it into the ear, I know exactly where to stop. Be sure the skewer is in the center of the ear, and you can twist it back and forth until you reach your mark. Go ahead and do the same thing for the second ear. Hold the ears up against the hat to figure out exactly where they need to go, and then make a little tiny mark where you're going to be inserting the skewer. It really helps to get down at eye level when figuring out the positioning of the ears. Go ahead and do the same thing for the second ear. We're going to pre-make the holes in the hat using a skewer that's the exact same size as the skewer that's in the ears. You want to stick the pointy end in and make sure that you give yourself a good couple of inches into the hat. After you take the skewer out, turn it around and stick the blunt end in. Move it in and out a couple of times so you can loosen the hole. This will avoid us having to be forceful when we're actually adding the ears. As you can see, I'm handling the hat quite a bit, so it does help to let your hat dry for a couple of hours before you do this. Now insert the skewer blunt end into the hat and make a little mark with the pencil so you know how deep the hole is. Line up the skewer next to one of the skewers in one of the ears and make a mark so that you know exactly where to make your cut. Use cutters to trim your skewer. I'm going to do the same thing for the second hole, but this time I'm going to use a pen, that way I don't confuse the marks. So I'm going to line it up next to my second ear and make a mark on that skewer. Try not to confuse which ear goes in which hole because the depths might be a little bit different. Now we can gently place the skewers into the holes. If you feel a little bit of resistance, use some small pliers to push it all the way down. Just like that. If you're happy with the placement of the ears, go ahead and lift the first ear a tiny bit and add a little bit of edible glue at the bottom of the ear or on the hat. Go ahead and do the same thing for the second ear. Be sure to give the bottom of the ears a good little nudge towards the hat so that you know that they're stuck. Now we're going to make the bow for Minnie's hat. For this, I'm going to use a beautiful bright red. You can also use pink, but I'm going to stick with red today. I'm going to start by cutting a long strip to 11 inches in length, and then I'm going to use a smaller ruler and make several marks at a height of 2.5 inches. That way I can easily align my ruler and then cut off the top part of this strip. Flip the whole thing over and fold it in half just to give it a little crease in the center. At the center crease, you're going to fold the strip towards you like a taco and then fold the edges back and squeeze. Add a little bit of glue in the center. Repeat the same type of folds on both ends of the strip and give the ends a little pinch. Now carefully flip the entire thing over and add a little bit of glue to the back to make sure the center stays nice and closed. Then flip it over again. Scrunch a little bit of plastic together and place it inside one of the bow loops, and this is going to help keep it nice and open while it's drying. All you need is a little bit of glue on the end of the loop and then press it down towards the center of the bow. Go ahead and repeat the same steps for the second loop. For the center of the bow, I'm going to roll out a little bit of red gum paste, and I'm going to cut out a rectangle that's roughly about 4 inches long and 1 3/4 inches wide. I'm going to flip this over and add just a very thin line of edible glue on both of the edges. I'm using my blade here to help me flip the very edge over, and then I'm going to press it down. I'm doing the same thing to the other side. I'm going to flip it back over and place it on top of a modeling stick, and I'm going to run my fingers over it back and forth just to give the appearance of a couple of cute little creases. Now I just need to add a little bit of glue to the entire back of this center piece. I'm going to center this piece right over my bow, and I'm going to press it back gently with my fingers, flip it over, and then close it in the back. This bow will sit perfectly on top of our mini hat, but first let's move the plastic out of the way a little bit. We're going to flip the bow over and add glue only to the areas that are going to be touching the ears and the top of the hat, nowhere else. Center the bow right on top of the hat, and now you're going to remove the plastic and place your thumbs inside the loops to press the back of the bow up against the ears. Replace the plastic when you're done. Let this dry for a while before you continue working on it. Okay, now that my bow is somewhat dry, I can add the little polka dots to the bow. So for this, I'm going to cut out several little tiny circles using a 1/8 tip. I'll add a little bit of edible glue to the back of each polka dot, and then I can place them on my bow in a really cute polka dot pattern. I keep in mind that the red bow is supposed to be fabric, so you really don't want to put them on there in a perfectly straight fashion. You want to kind of mimic the movement of fabric. So some of the polka dots, as you can see, I'm actually trimming them so that they can match up with the edges and they still fall into a sequence that makes sense on the polka dot pattern. This is probably the funnest part of creating a mini hat for me because it's super relaxing, plus I know that I'm close to done. I usually don't add polka dots to the back of the bow, but you're more than welcome to if you'd like. The center part of the bow can also be decorated with polka dots. It looks very cute that way as well. Here's what the bow looks like all done. Beautiful, I love it. And all it needs is a good steam to clean up all of our edible glue stains and make it nice and shiny. Ready for a beautiful Minnie Mouse cake. We hope you enjoyed our tutorial.
Thanks for watching, everybody.
Hey guys, we have lots of other fun and creative tutorials that you can check out, like these artist-themed cupcake toppers. If you'd like to learn how to make them, click on the video on the left. If you'd like to learn how to cover a cake tier in 2 different colored fondants, check out our 2-tone cake tutorial. You can click on the video on the right for that one. If you're on a mobile device, you can find links to these tutorials in the Show More section underneath our video. We'd like to invite you to visit our online shops where you can find many more tutorials and our handmade merchandise. We would also love it if you could follow us on our social media. You can find all the links underneath our video. But more importantly, if you haven't yet, don't forget to subscribe.